I wrote these down because I did not want there to be any misinterpretation or misunderstanding of what I'm going to say today. But this is to the Beaufort Regional Health System Board members. Today's the date, January 22nd, 2018. Mr. Chairman and other board members, I would like to make the following comments as a part of the public record for the board minutes on this date. After viewing the December 5th, 2017 Beaufort County Commissioners regular meeting, I was appalled and shocked at the motions made and passed by this governing body as it related to the dissolution of the Hospital Authority Board. First, Mr. Buzzio's first motion to dissolve the board based on the recommendation of the board was incomplete. I made that motion at our meeting on October 25th, 2017, and it was amended to read pending a positive financial report from Wilson, Jones, and Griffin. Mr. Buzzio did not have that report nor the minutes from our October 25th, 2017 meeting to share at the Commissioners' meeting on December 5th, 2017. Mr. Buzzio's third motion was very shocking. This was obviously made in order for the county to borrow from this escrow money that has been termed idle funds in order to pay for capital improvements within the county that have been neglected for years. Also, the county manager noted that this plan is to borrow from the hospital fund was counted on back in April 2017. This plan was made in order to have the county pay a lesser interest fee from paying back the borrowed money over a 10-year span. However, the most shocking motion of all in this meeting was the one made by Gary Brin that authorized the borrowing of $3.5 million from the, quote, hospital fund. This passed with a 4-3 vote. Jerry Evans, Ed Booth, and Hood Richardson opposed. Who knows why Evans and Booth voted no, since both voted to borrow from the fund. It is my belief that Ron Buzzio, Frankie Waters, and Jerry Langley have been deceitful in their duties to this board. All three have known the intent for use of this money for months. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the reason they did not reappoint Hood Richardson to this authority board. Furthermore, Mr. Ron Buzzio, Joe Kahn's office have failed to provide the board with accurate minutes in a timely manner, not to mention copies of any corrections that were to be made. I am embarrassed and disappointed that I have spent over 7 years on this board and diligently tried to preserve this money only to see it misused in the blink of an eye. Herb Richardson was correct in voting against a letter of appreciation to board members. If allowed, I would certainly make another motion to not dissolve this authority board. Regardless of what the Beaufort County manager, who is complicit in this matter, says about having to follow some rules in government bookkeeping and auditing, this money will become a slush fund for the county. I dare say that if any of us are alive in 10 years and can remember this, that $3.5 million will not be there. This may be a good business decision in the short run, but it is a poor measure of the integrity and honesty of the three commissioners on this board. Suzanne Gray. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me that opportunity.
No problem. Anybody else have any comments?
I fully support what she said.
Fine. Judge, you can?
Well, I was of the understanding that the money that we were shepherding was going to be used for health care activities within the county over no particular period of time. I guess I'm a little surprised that there won't be any money to do anything in that regard, because it's all going to be borrowed by the county for non-health care uses. A little surprising to me.
Yeah. You're not saying anything.
I was under the same assumption that the money in the escrow fund was to be earmarked for various other healthcare services beyond the hospital in the county. That was what we were shepherding it for.
I'd like to respond.
Go ahead.
I think that when the county made the decision, they were considering alternatives of borrowing the money from a local bank versus using the money from this fund. It was pointed out by one of our citizens that they thought we should be borrowing the money from our own self instead of borrowing the money from someone else. We had a discussion, and of course, just like in here, you got a difference of opinion. But the majority of the board agreed that we should borrow the money from the fund. As you well know, there's a little over $4.5 million, so we borrowed 3.5, or have agreed to borrow 3.5, and that money be paid back on a monthly basis. So there is some money there to do, something as it relates to health care. I think that we're all looking at long term, and I don't think, we had originally talked about 3, and then we got into the project, we were overbid, so that moved it from 3 to 3.5 million. But I don't think it's fair to criticize, 3 of the commissioners and saying that we knew what we were going to do all along, because the decision to borrow from this money to be transferred was not made until our December meeting. We were
Your
talking.
county manager made in his statement talking about this. You go back and look at the video. He said back in April, we talked about borrowing from the hospital fund. You guys and the 3 of you commissioners that are representing this board, you've not represented this board, Frankie. That's my point. You have represented the county, and this board was separate and apart, and you did not discern a difference in your role. And that's bothersome to me, and particularly when I had a lunch with you 2 gentlemen before we ever got to meeting, and we talked about enhancing EMS services. I understand, as I said, the short-term understanding of interest. What I do not understand is that significant amount, 3.5, and it'll be, what'll be the next thing that's gonna have to come out of that? What citizens gonna think, borrow from yourself? And I don't care what anybody says, you can put this on the books all you want to, but there's nobody, and it's like you said, Frankie, you said it very clearly, and I appreciate it, you saying it just like that once the commissioners have this money, they can do what they want to with it. But the intent was, and still is, was for health care. And I don't think paving the parking lot at the Tylen building is absolutely health care. And that's my status. That's my
Up
status.
until November, as far as I'm concerned, the only discussion was borrowing $3.5 million from outside sources.
You're gonna have to
I'm not
speak
aware
up,
of-
Ron, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Up until November, the discussion was on borrowing money from outside sources, not from the hospital.
Listen to
didn't
that
happen.
video.
That didn't happen. I'm just telling you, the intention was that the money would be borrowed from outside source.
Well, whether or not he's complicit or not, the bottom line is you're borrowing, or you're planning to borrow and take $3.5 million. Is that correct? You're
Yeah.
gonna take it.
We're gonna borrow the money and start paying it back.
Has the
Monthly.
county established or appointed or set somebody up to actually figure out how to use that money for healthcare purposes?
Now,
Should that not be done? I mean, I don't think the intent ever was that it sit there and grow mold and act as a source for borrowing. The intent was to use it.
And
But if we don't
The
know.
county
Yeah,
manager, go ahead.
I'm gonna go back, and I'm not gonna get in the middle. I'm certainly not trying to jump in the middle between you all, but, you
Jump
know,
away.
and I sound like a broken record, because I've said this a number of times as I sat on this board, was when this whole thing went down originally, the county owned an asset, which is the building, the brick and mortar. The county didn't ever own the business, which is the hospital. And so there was some things, as the original hospital was failing financially because of economic reasons and whatever, the county stepped in to assist by basically picking up all of the assets. The county at the last minute borrowed a bunch of money to acquire all the assets, so that because at one time the authority owned some assets, the county owned some assets. It was real confusing. I can't remember. There was dirt and there was brick and mortar. The county owned some of the dirt and the authority owned the brick and mortar. So from a transaction standpoint, it was very complicated. The county went in and purchased all of the assets and stood to gain financially from what was a sale or a long-term lease agreement. And at that point, really the county was in the driver's seat as far as medicine going forward. I mean, they could dictate certain things, but they also could be business folks, and they could say, this lease, we're selling this asset or we're leasing this asset, and we're going to get all of the money ourselves. And really what happened to start that process of the money that's coming in to the county was going to be used for medical was the seated board at that time voted to whatever money they earned, whatever money and profit they earned, they were going to set aside to basically secure that asset, which is the hospital, for future use. If Vidant ever decided to do something different, or if Vidant decided to build another facility, the county would be left with a building there. And there was some concern from different commissioners about access of care and so forth. But that one motion only basically was, and as the county does, each board after that has the authority to make another motion and change that vision or change that. So even though that was the condition at that time, and what happened was this board was set aside just to safeguard the money, and this board really took on Suzanne's interest of, hey, look, we really want to see this money go through to healthcare, and so I think it's a good discussion to have. Ultimately, I'm ping-ponging back and forth, but ultimately, when the county gets the money, they don't even have to set it aside for healthcare. They could use it forever they want. Now the attorneys probably are going to disagree a little bit with that, and it's probably true based on the intention of that money. But I'm jumping around, but I would hope that as that money gets paid back, it does get used for healthcare.
Who actually established the intention? Was it the county commissioners or was it Biden?
Intention of what?
Of what these dollars would be used for? The original intention that would be used.
The money in the hospital thought was set up to take care of trailing liabilities. And at the time, I believe, as I understand it, they didn't even think that they would have any money left over. And the idea that there was supposed to be some safeguard between the county and liabilities and the hospital authority, they were trying to protect the county. But look, somebody's going to sue, they're going to go for deep pockets anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So, now, the money was put into a line item for healthcare. The original intent was that Martin was going to be borrowed from a bank or whatever. And then I think the commissioners even raised the issue about wanting to borrow from ourselves. And instead of it, the intention is to pay back on a monthly basis plus interest. Instead of just sitting there. Now,
I think that's certainly better than it just sitting there.
yeah. Now, the other thing is, we're looking to continue that EMS system, the paramedic, and things like that, other things the county can do, or health department needs. That's all being looked at by the commission. I understand with some of the other officers, departments in the county. But that's the intention. Instead of just sitting there.
And this would be the logical source of monies for those.
Well, when you look at those projects, you gotta look at long term. Those things should have been done 20 years ago, so. And it was just, the can kept kicked down the road. So we decided that something had to be done. And the money was, like I said, it was going to be borrowed outside. Instead of getting this money, they said, well, let's borrow from ourselves and pay ourselves back on a monthly basis to take care of these projects. And it was getting to the point with some of the county office buildings, you give everybody umbrellas, so they couldn't get wet when it rained. How often can you repair something? There was a lot of short-sightedness in the county. Hopefully we'll set up some type of maintenance plan program in the county. I'd like to see that happen. Because there's a lot of things tied together, not silent. Too long, people operating with silo concepts, and hopefully this will change. But I can understand the comments and the opinions, and I appreciate them, about, the money should just be used for healthcare. Well, what would that be? If, some people say, well, gee, if Ryden walks away, we'll run the hospital. That lasts 19 days. And half the staff, the doctors will be gone anyway.
Yep. More than
We
that.
could have sold it to somebody else instead of Vyden. Well, they're closing hospitals. I think they closed a number of hospitals. I hope you don't own stock in that company.
That would be enough money to demolish the facility, which is what you'd wind up doing.
Yeah, well, the county could run a hospital on its own. The property cost us about $2 we'd have to raise in taxes. And then where would you get the staff?
It would be a worthless hospital.
Now, there was something in the lease agreement that was set up the hospital authority that if the county didn't take action by September 1st, 2016, I believe, the hospital authority would have taken full control of the money, if they wanted to. And I guess they could tie that in with $6 million if they wanted a mold-ridden hospital, and they would have walked away with about $11 million. The county didn't have it. So there's a lot of things that come into these discussions. Any other discussions? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Joe, you want to say anything?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Also moved.
Rich made the motion, second.
Second.
Any discussion? Not signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's a first. Joe Kahn said no.